Imagine a small boy. He is standing on a dirt field in Argentina. His shoes are old. His shirt is too big for him. But his eyes are full of fire. He has a football at his feet. And when he starts to run, something magical happens. Everyone stops to watch. Nobody can take the ball from him. Nobody can stop him. This boy is only 7 years old, and one day he will become the greatest football player the world has ever seen. But the road to that moment will be full of pain, tears, and broken dreams. This is the story of Lionel Messi, a boy who had everything against him, and yet he never stopped believing. Lionel Andres Messi was born on June 24, 1987, in a city called Rosario in Argentina. Rosario is a busy city. It is full of energy and life. The people there love football more than almost anything else. Football is not just a sport in Argentina. It is part of life. It is in the air that people breathe. Children play football in the streets, in the parks, in the fields. Everyone dreams of becoming the next great player. Messi grew up in a neighborhood called Las Heras. His family was not rich. They did not have a lot of money. His father, Jorge Messi, worked in a steel factory. His mother, Celia, worked in a cleaning job. They worked very hard every day to take care of their family. Lionel had 2 older brothers, Rodrigo and Matias, and a younger sister named Maria Sol. The family was close and loving. They did not have many things, but they had each other, and they had football. From the very first moment Lionel touched a football, something was different. He was not like other children. He moved differently. He thought differently. His grandmother, Celia, was the first person who saw his gift. She was a very important person in his life. She loved him deeply. She was the one who took young Lionel to his first football practice. She walked with him to the local club. She held his hand. She believed in him before anyone else did. The local club was called Grandoli. Lionel was only 5 years old when he started playing there. The other children were bigger. They were stronger. Lionel was small. He was very quiet. He did not talk much. He just watched everything with his big eyes. And then he played. And when he played, people could not believe what they were seeing. This tiny boy could dribble past players twice his size. He had a natural feeling for the ball. It was like the ball was part of his body. His coach at Grandoli was his father, Jorge. Jorge loved football, and he understood his son's talent. He watched Lionel carefully. He guided him gently. He never pushed too hard. He just encouraged him to enjoy the game, to love it, to feel free with the ball. And Lionel did. Every single day, Lionel wanted to play. He would wake up thinking about football. He would fall asleep dreaming about it. He practiced every moment he could. When Lionel was 6 years old, his beloved grandmother Celia passed away. She died suddenly. It was a huge shock for the whole family. But for little Lionel, it was devastating. He had lost his biggest supporter. He had lost the person who first believed in him. He cried deeply. He did not want to play for a while. The world felt dark and empty without her. But slowly, football called him back. When he was on the field, he felt close to her. He played for her. He played with her memory in his heart. Even years later, when Messi scored important goals, he would point to the sky. He was always thinking of his grandmother. That small gesture of pointing up became one of the most famous celebrations in football history. And behind it was the love of a small boy for the woman who first believed in him. By the time Lionel was 8 years old, he had joined the youth team of a local professional club called Newell's Old Boys. This was a big step. Newell's Old Boys was a real club with a real history. And Lionel became part of their famous youth team called the Machine of '87. They were called this because they were born in 1987, and they were like a machine. They played together perfectly. They worked together. And Lionel was the heart of that team. In the time he played with Newell's Old Boys youth team, Lionel scored an incredible number of goals. Some people say he scored nearly 500 goals for that youth team. The number is hard to believe, but people who watched him play say it is true. He was unstoppable. He was electric. Whenever he got the ball, something exciting was about to happen. Fans, parents, coaches, everyone came to watch this small boy play, and everyone left amazed. But underneath all of this success, a storm was growing. A quiet, invisible storm inside his body. When Lionel was 10 years old, his family noticed something. He was not growing like other boys. His friends were getting taller. Lionel was staying small. His parents took him to the doctor. The doctor had difficult news. Lionel had a condition called growth hormone deficiency. This means his body was not producing the hormone it needed to grow properly. Without treatment, he would remain very short, and being very short could make it very difficult for a professional football career. The treatment existed, a special injection. Lionel would need to inject himself with the growth hormone every single night. Every night, without missing one. The treatment was painful. Imagine being a 10-year-old boy, and every night before sleep, you have to give yourself an injection in the leg. Night after night, week after week, month after month. It was not easy. For any child, that would be terrifying. But Lionel did it. He was brave. He endured the pain because he wanted to grow. He wanted to play football. He wanted to be the best. But the injections were very expensive. The treatment cost around $900 every month. For Pasisi's family, that was an enormous amount of money. Jorge's salary from the steel factory was not enough. The family struggled. They asked for help. They asked Newell's Old Boys Club to help pay for the treatment. The club said no. They could not afford it. This was a moment of crisis. What could the family do? They could not afford the injections without help. Without the injections, Lionel would stop growing. His football dreams could be over before they even really began. Jorge and Celia were desperate. They tried every option. They asked people for help. They wrote letters. They made phone calls. Nights were full of worry and stress. Then something happened that changed everything. One of Jorge's relatives had a connection to FC Barcelona in Spain. FC Barcelona was one of the greatest football clubs in the entire world. Jorge reached out. He sent a message. He asked if Barcelona would be interested in looking at his son. He had nothing to lose. It felt like a dream, like something impossible. Who would believe that a small club from Rosario, Argentina, could have a connection to the great FC Barcelona? But the message reached the right person. Carlos Rexach was the sporting director of FC Barcelona at the time. He received a message about this extraordinary young boy from Argentina, a boy with unbelievable talent, a boy who could dribble, who could score, who had a gift that people rarely saw. Rexach was curious. He agreed to take a look. The family saved money. They borrowed money. They bought plane tickets. They flew all the way from Argentina to Spain. It was the first time Lionel had ever been on a plane. It was the first time he had ever left Argentina. He was 11 years old. He was small, quiet, and nervous. He looked around at Spain with wide eyes. Everything was new. The language sounded the same but different. The streets were different. The weather was different. Everything was different. A trial was arranged. Lionel would train with the Barcelona youth players. The coaches would watch him. They would decide if he was good enough to join the club. Lionel walked onto the training pitch. He looked around. He saw the other players. Some were bigger than him. Some looked more confident. He took a deep breath. And then the training began. What happened next became legendary. The coaches watched in silence. Then their silence turned into surprise. Their surprise turned into excitement. This small, quiet boy from Argentina was doing things that none of them had ever seen from a player his age. His touch was perfect. His movement was incredible. His speed with the ball was electric. In one moment, he went past 3 players as if they were standing still. He moved like water. He was impossible to catch. Carlos Rekik watched, and he made up his mind very quickly. He knew immediately. This was an extraordinary talent. This boy must not leave. Barcelona must sign him. Must. There was no question. But then came the problem. The official people at Barcelona were slow. There were meetings. There were discussions. People debated. Lawyers were involved. Papers needed to be signed. The family was waiting. Days passed. Then weeks passed. Lionel and his family were staying in Barcelona, uncertain about the future. They had spent all their money. They were far from home. They were waiting for an answer. The stress was enormous. Rekik could see the situation becoming dangerous. If Barcelona did not act fast, this boy might go back to Argentina. Another club might get him. That could not happen. So Rekik did something rather unusual. He was having lunch at a restaurant one day. There was no official paper available. So he grabbed a paper napkin from the restaurant table. And on that paper napkin, he wrote a contract. He wrote that FC Barcelona committed to signing Lionel Messi. He signed the napkin. It was one of the most famous napkins in sports history. That small piece of restaurant paper was the beginning of one of the greatest careers the world has ever seen. The official contract was signed properly soon after. Lionel Messi and his father Jorge moved to Barcelona. His mother and siblings stayed in Argentina for a while. This separation was very hard for the family. Lionel missed his mother terribly. He missed his brothers, his sister, his friends, his neighborhood. He missed the sounds and smells of Rosario. He was a young boy far from home, in a foreign country, without his mother. There were nights when Lionel cried alone in his room. He was homesick. He felt lonely. He was surrounded by Spanish boys who had their families close. He had only his father. The language was fine, as Spanish was his language too. But the culture, the city, everything was strange and new. Some of the other youth players were not friendly to him at first. They saw this quiet, small boy from Argentina, and they did not pay much attention to him. But on the football field, attention was unavoidable. The moment Lionel started playing, everything changed. The coaches could see it. The other players could see it. Even the unfriendly ones could not ignore it. This boy was different. Every training session, every practice match, Lionel showed something special. He worked incredibly hard. He arrived early. He stayed late. He practiced the same moves over and over until they were perfect. One of the youth coaches at Barcelona said something beautiful about young Messi. He said that when Lionel trained, he was always completely focused. He did not talk much. He did not waste time. He just worked. And when he played, it was like watching someone who was born only to do this one thing. The growth hormone injections continued in Barcelona. Barcelona now paid for the treatment. Every night, Lionel gave himself the injection. He grew. Slowly but steadily, he grew. The treatment was working. And on the football field, he was also growing in every way. Barcelona has a famous youth academy called La Masia. It is one of the most respected football academies in the world. Players from all over the world dream of entering La Masia. Messi joined this academy. He lived there, trained there, grew up there. La Masia became his second home. He made friends there. Some of those friends would become his teammates for many years. Players like Cesc Fabregas and Gerard Piqué. These young boys trained together, laughed together, competed together. and pushed each other to be better every single day. Life at La Masia was disciplined. The boys woke up early. They had structured training sessions. They had school lessons as well, because education was important. The days were full and busy. There was no time for laziness. Everyone was there because they had talent. But talent alone was not enough. The ones who worked the hardest were the ones who would make it. Messi was one of those who worked the hardest. He never thought his talent made him special in a way that allowed him to relax. He always felt he had more to learn, more to improve, more to work on. His coaches sometimes had to tell him to rest. He would want to keep practicing even when training was finished. This dedication, this hunger, this love for improvement was one of the most important parts of who Messi was. By the time Messi was 16 years old, the coaches at Barcelona were talking about him in a different way. They were not just talking about a promising youth player anymore. They were talking about a player who might soon be ready for the first team. The main Barcelona squad, the professional team that competed in La Liga, the Spanish Football League, one of the best leagues in the world. On November 16, 2003, at 16 years old, Lionel Messi made his debut for FC Barcelona in a friendly match against Porto. It was a pre-season game. It was not an official match. But for Messi, walking out onto that pitch in a Barcelona shirt, it was everything. He had worked for this moment his whole life. His father watched from the stands. His eyes were full of emotion. The coach of Barcelona at that time was Frank Rijkaard. He could see what Messi had. He knew this young player needed to be handled carefully. Too much pressure, too soon could damage a young talent, but too little opportunity could waste it. Rijkaard watched and waited for the right moment. That moment came on October 16, 2004. Messi was 17 years old. Barcelona was playing against Espanyol in La Liga. Rijkaard brought Messi on as a substitute late in the game. Messi ran onto the pitch and touched the ball only a few times. But everyone who was watching could feel something. The energy around him was different. The stadium sensed something extraordinary was arriving. His official debut was done. He was the third youngest player ever to play for FC Barcelona in a La Liga match at that time. The journey had truly begun. Over the next months and years, Messi slowly got more playing time. Each time he came on, he showed something. A dribble, a shot, a piece of skill that made people gasp. The Barcelona fans began to notice him. They began to ask for him. They wanted to see more of this young boy. In May 2005, Messi scored his first official goal for Barcelona. The goal was beautiful. He received the ball, turned, dribbled past the defender, and finished calmly. The goal was disallowed at first because of an offside decision, but after a review, it was given. The announcer shouted his name. The crowd cheered. Messi looked around at the massive stadium, at the tens of thousands of fans, and he felt something beyond words. He was 17 years old. He was playing for one of the greatest clubs in the world, and he had just scored his first goal. He pointed to the sky. He thought of his grandmother, Celia. He whispered something. A thank you, a love, a memory. But even as things were going well in Barcelona, there was a painful situation with his national team. Argentina, the country where he was born, the country where he learned to play football in the dirt fields of Rosario. Messi was eligible to play for both Argentina and Spain. He had grown up in Spain. He had become a Spanish resident. Both countries wanted him. This was a complicated situation, but for Messi, there was never really a question. He was Argentine. He was born in Rosario. Football was in his blood from Argentina. He would play for Argentina. In June 2005, Messi represented Argentina in the Under-20 World Cup in the Netherlands. Argentina were one of the favorites to win, and Messi was one of the key players. He was brilliant in the tournament. Argentina won the Under-20 World Cup. Messi was the best player in the tournament. He won the Golden Ball for Best Player and the Golden Shoe for Top Scorer. He stood on that podium with the trophy. This quiet boy from Rosario, who had been told his body was not growing properly, who had needed injections every night, who had left his family and his homeland to follow a dream, was standing there as the best young player in the world. His father stood watching with tears streaming down his face. Back in Barcelona, things were also moving beautifully. In the 2005 to 2006 season, Messi became a regular part of the Barcelona first team. He was not yet the main star, but he was becoming very important. Barcelona had great players. Ronaldinho, the Brazilian genius, was at the peak of his powers at that time. Ronaldinho and Messi formed an incredible friendship. Ronaldinho loved Messi. He talked about him all the time. He said Messi was going to be the best player in the world. He pushed Messi forward. He celebrated Messi's goals with real joy. That friendship and support from Ronaldinho meant a great deal to young Messi. Then came a moment that shook everyone. In the 2006 to 2007 season, Messi suffered a serious injury. He broke his metatarsal bone in his foot. This is a very painful and serious injury for a footballer. He was out for weeks. He had to watch from the sidelines as his teammates played. He had to sit in the treatment room while others were on the pitch. This was one of the hardest things for Messi. He hated not playing. Being injured felt like being imprisoned. He worked incredibly hard on his recovery. He followed every instruction from the medical team. He was patient, even though patience was difficult. He focused on coming back stronger, and when he returned, he did exactly that. In the 2006 to 2007 Champions League, Messi was back and brilliant. Barcelona reached the knockout stages. Messi showed the world what he could do on the biggest stage. He was fast, creative, unpredictable, and deadly in front of goal. Then came a game that people still talk about many years later. In April 2007, Barcelona played against Getafe in the Copa del Rey semifinal. Messi received the ball inside his own half of the pitch. He started running. He went past one defender, then another, then another, then another. His legs moved like something mechanical, but also somehow human and beautiful. He was a blur of movement. He dribbled through the entire opposition team. He went past the goalkeeper, and he scored. The goal was compared immediately to perhaps the most famous goal in football history, a goal scored by Diego Maradona for Argentina against England in the 1986 World Cup. That goal was called the goal of the century, and Messi's goal against Getafe was so similar, so breathtaking, that people immediately started saying something extraordinary. They started saying that maybe this young man from Rosario could one day match or even surpass the great Maradona. In Argentina, this was not a small thing. Maradona was not just a footballer in Argentina. He was a god. He was a symbol. He was everything. To even mention a young player in the same sentence as Maradona was unheard of. But there it was. People were saying it. And the comparisons were based not just on hope, but on what they were actually seeing with their own eyes. Maradona himself began watching Messi very carefully. And slowly, the great man started to say things that surprised people. He said that Messi had something special, something rare. He did not give that praise easily. And the fact that he gave it to Messi meant everything. Over the next few seasons, Messi grew from a wonderful young player into something the football world had never quite seen before. Season after season, he became better. He scored more goals. He created more chances. He dribbled past more players. He won more trophies. Barcelona were dominant in Spain and in Europe, and Messi was at the heart of everything. In the 2008 to 2009 season, Barcelona were truly incredible. They were managed by Pep Guardiola, who had taken over as head coach. Guardiola was a brilliant thinker about football. He had ideas about how the game should be played that were fresh and powerful, and he saw Messi not just as a talented player, but as the central piece of his vision. Guardiola told Messi something important. He told him to be free. He said, "Just play, express yourself, trust yourself." And Messi did exactly that. That season, Barcelona won the Spanish League, the Spanish Cup, and the Champions League. They won all three major trophies in one season. This is called the treble. It is one of the hardest things to achieve in football. Barcelona achieved it, and Messi was the star of the team. At the end of that season, the world gave Messi the biggest individual prize in football, the Ballon d'Or. This is the award given every year to the best footballer in the world. Messi won it. He held the golden ball in his hands and he smiled. That quiet boy from Rosario, who had been so shy, so small, so uncertain, was now officially the best footballer on the planet. But this was only the beginning. Messi went on to win the Ballon d'Or again and again and again. He won it 4 times in a row. Then later in his career, he would win it more times still. He became the player who won the Ballon d'Or more times than anyone in history. The records seemed impossible when they started, and then he kept breaking them. He scored goals that people replayed over and over, goals of impossible technique, free kicks that bent and curved and flew into corners that no goalkeeper could reach, dribbles that left defenders sitting on the grass, confused about what had just happened to them, passes that cut through entire defenses, assists that created goals from nothing. And yet, with all of this success at Barcelona, there was one place where Messi was struggling. His national team, Argentina. Argentina is a country that loves football with a passion that is difficult to describe. And they had always had a complicated relationship with Messi. He had left the country when he was 13. He had grown up in Spain. He spoke with a slight Spanish accent. Some Argentine fans questioned his loyalty. They compared him constantly to Maradona. They said Maradona had won the World Cup for Argentina in 1986. What had Messi done for Argentina? This criticism was unfair. It was also painful. Messi gave everything for Argentina every time he wore the blue and white shirt. He worked as hard for Argentina as he did for Barcelona. He wanted to win for his country more than anything. But somehow, with Argentina, things did not go the way they did with Barcelona. In the 2014 World Cup in Brazil, Argentina reached the final. They played against Germany. It was one of the greatest World Cup finals in history. Messi had been brilliant throughout the tournament. He had scored goals, created chances, carried the team on his shoulders in difficult moments. He had won the Golden Ball as the best player of the tournament, but the final itself was agonizing. It went to extra time, and in the very last minutes of extra time, Germany scored. Argentina lost 1-0. Messi walked to the podium to collect his Golden Ball award. His eyes were red. His face was empty. The crowd cheered for him, but he could not smile. He had the individual prize, but the trophy he wanted, the World Cup trophy, was in German hands. He sat on the bus after the game. He stared at the floor. His teammates sat around him in silence. The bus drove through the night in Brazil. Outside, life continued. Inside, there was a heavy, heavy silence. Many people thought that was Messi's best chance. Many people began saying that Argentina would never win with Messi. They said he was a great player, but not a leader. They said he could not do for Argentina what Maradona did. These words were cruel. They were unfair. But they were written and spoken all around the world. In 2015, Argentina reached the Copa America final. The Copa America is the South American Championship. They lost. In 2016, Argentina reached the Copa America Centenario final. They lost again. 3 finals in 3 years and 3 defeats. After the 2016 loss, Messi walked to the microphone. He announced that he was retiring from international football. He was done with Argentina. He could no longer carry the pain. The reaction in Argentina was shock and sadness. Fans cried in the streets. Some begged him to stay. Some understood. Some criticized him. It was chaos. Messi went home and sat in silence, but slowly something changed inside him. He thought about his grandmother Celia. He thought about the streets of Rosario. He thought about the children who grew up dreaming of football the same way he had. He thought about what it meant to wear the blue and white shirt. He thought about everything he had sacrificed to get to this point. He came back. He reversed his retirement decision. He would play for Argentina again. He was not finished. He could not be finished. Not yet. The years continued. Messi kept winning at Barcelona. More league titles, more Champions League trophies, more records broken. He became the all-time top scorer in the history of La Liga. He scored over 600 goals for Barcelona. Numbers that seemed impossible. But personally, things at Barcelona slowly began to change. The club began to have financial difficulties. Players changed. The team that Messi had known for so many years began to break apart. Friends left. New players arrived. The magic of those golden years with Guardiola slowly faded. In 2021, something happened that shook the entire football world. FC Barcelona announced that Lionel Messi would be leaving the club after 21 years, after more than 700 games, after over 670 goals, after 10 La Liga titles, after 4 Champions League trophies, after 6 Ballon d'Or awards at that point. He was leaving. It was because of financial reasons. Barcelona could simply not afford to keep him. The rules of Spanish football meant the club could not pay his wages even if they wanted to. Messi held a press conference. He sat in front of the cameras. Thousands of people watched. Journalists filled the room. He began to speak, and then he stopped. His voice broke. Tears came. The greatest footballer of his generation was crying in front of the world, saying goodbye to the club that had been his homes since he was 13 years old. He said, "I gave everything for this club, my whole life. Everything I have is because of Barcelona, and Barcelona is a part of me forever." The room was silent, except for the sound of cameras clicking. He moved to Paris Saint-Germain in France. This was a new chapter, a strange chapter. Paris was beautiful, but it was not Barcelona. The fans were different. The language was different. The football culture was different. His children went to new schools. His wife Antonella, who had known Lionel since they were children in Rosario, helped the family adjust. They made it work. But Paris never felt like home. On the pitch, his first season in Paris was not easy. He struggled with injury. He struggled with the team's system. He was not at his best. Critics said he was finished. They said his great years were over. They said age had finally caught up with him. But Messi had heard those words before. People had underestimated him before. He had proved people wrong before, and he would do it again. Then came the 2022 World Cup in Qatar. This was Messi's moment. This was the moment the whole world had been waiting for. This was his last chance. He was 35 years old. He would probably not play in another World Cup. This was it. The final chapter of the greatest individual story in football history needed an ending. And there was only one ending that would be right. Argentina went to Qatar as a strong team, but not the overwhelming favorite. France was the defending champions. Brazil had a strong squad. England were dangerous. Everyone wanted to see Messi lift the trophy, and everyone also feared it might not happen. From the first game, Messi was different. Something had changed in him. He was playing with a freedom, a joy, and a focus that felt total and absolute. He was not carrying pressure. He was carrying purpose. He played every game as if it was a gift. Every touch, every run, every moment on the pitch, he gave everything. Argentina's first game was a disaster. They lost to Saudi Arabia 2-1. It was one of the biggest shocks in World Cup history. Argentina, one of the favorites, had lost their first game. The whole country went into mourning. Journalists wrote that it was over. They said Argentina would struggle to advance. They said Messi's last World Cup would end in disappointment. But in the changing room after that Saudi Arabia loss, Messi stood up. He looked at his teammates. He spoke quietly but with total conviction. He said, "We are Argentina. We do not give up. This is not over. We win together or we go home together. Let us go." Argentina won their next game, and the next. They advanced through the tournament. One game at a time, one challenge at a time. Messi was involved in almost every important moment. Goals, assists, dribbles, penalties. He was everywhere. In the quarterfinal, they played against the Netherlands. The game was one of the most intense, emotional, dramatic matches in recent World Cup history. It went to extra time. It went to penalties. Messi scored his penalty with total authority. He looked at the goalkeeper, placed the ball, walked back, ran forward, and put it in the corner. No fear, no hesitation. Argentina won on penalties. In the semifinal, they played Croatia. Messi was brilliant. He scored a brilliant goal. He assisted another. Argentina won 3-0. They were in the final. The final was against France, the defending champions. It was one of the greatest football matches ever played. Argentina led 2-0. France came back to 2-2. Argentina scored again to lead 3-2. France scored again to make it 3-3. It went to extra time. It went to penalties. The whole world was watching. Hundreds of millions of people, all of them watching one man, one story, one final chapter. Messi scored his penalty. Other players scored. Some missed. Then the final French penalty was saved by goalkeeper Emiliano Martinez. Argentina won. The sound that came from the Argentine supporters inside that stadium is something no one who heard it will ever forget. It was not just joy. It was something deeper than joy. It was the sound of a nation releasing decades of longing. It was the sound of a story reaching its perfect ending. Messi fell to his knees on the grass. He raised his fists toward the sky. He closed his eyes. Teammates ran toward him and jumped on top of him in a huge pile of blue and white shirts and tears and screaming. The referee's whistle had blown. Argentina were world champions, and Lionel Messi had won the World Cup. He stood up from beneath his teammates. He looked around at the stadium. He looked at the sky. He pointed up, his grandmother Celia, his whole life, every injection, every night alone in Barcelona, every defeat, every criticism, every moment of doubt, every tear. All of it had led to this single moment. The tears ran down his face freely. When Messi lifted the World Cup trophy above his head, with the golden ball in his hands and the golden trophy above him, something important happened in the world, not just in the football world, in the world generally. Hundreds of millions of people watching on screens all over the planet felt something very simple but very profound. They felt that the right thing had happened. They felt that hard work and persistence and love and dedication had been rewarded. They felt that the story had ended the way it was always supposed to end. Argentina celebrated for weeks. The streets of Buenos Aires, of Rosario, of every city and town in the country were full of people dancing, singing, crying, hugging strangers. Messi came home to Argentina. He arrived at the airport, and the number of people who came to welcome him was extraordinary. The streets were lined with millions. The bus that carried the team moved slowly through the city, while people screamed and waved and held flags. Children sat on their parents' shoulders, waving Messi's number 10 shirt. Old men cried. Mothers held their babies up so the babies could one day say they were there when Argentina and Messi came home. In Rosario, where his story had begun on a dirt field with old shoes and a too big shirt, people gathered in the streets and looked toward the sky and remembered who this man was. He was one of them. He was a boy from Rosario who had gone out into the world and done something that no one had done before. He had combined the greatest individual talent the sport had ever seen with the greatest level of hard work, dedication, humility, and love for the game, and he had come back home a world champion. But before all the parades and before all the celebrations, there was a quiet moment, a private moment. Messi, standing alone for a brief second in the middle of the stadium in Qatar, before his teammates reached him, looked up at the sky. Just him, the noise all around him, and he pointed up, silently, for one person, the one person who had first taken his hand and walked him to the football pitch, who had believed in him before any coach, before any contract, before any golden ball, his grandmother Celia. There is a lesson in the life of Lionel Messi that goes beyond football. It goes beyond sport. It goes beyond any medal or trophy or record. It is a lesson about what happens when you refuse to stop. What happens when you love something so much that you keep going, even when the pain is enormous, even when the world says you cannot do it, even when your own body is working against you. Even when you are far from home and alone and afraid. Messi was told his body would not grow properly. He got injections every night to overcome that. He was told he was too small to be a professional footballer. He became the best professional footballer in history. He was told he could not win for Argentina what Maradona had won. He won the World Cup and became Argentina's greatest player alongside Maradona. He was told at 35 that he was finished. He went to the World Cup and won every single obstacle in his life. He met with the same response. He worked harder. He stayed humble. He kept believing. He kept playing. His wife Antonella knew him from childhood in Rosario. When they were young, they were friends. As they grew up, their friendship became love. Antonella followed him to Barcelona. She stood by him through every defeat, every criticism, every injury, every dark moment. They built a life together. They had 3 sons together, Thiago, Mateo, and Ciro. Those children grew up watching their father play for some of the greatest clubs in the world. And they watched their father lift the World Cup in Qatar. After the World Cup, Messi made another decision that surprised many people. He moved to the United States to play for Inter Miami in Major League Soccer. Many people questioned this. Why would the greatest footballer in the world move to America, where football is still growing? Why not stay in Europe where the biggest clubs played? Messi smiled quietly at the questions. He had his reasons. He wanted a new challenge. He wanted his family to have a calm, happy life. He wanted to help grow the sport in America. He wanted to play with joy and freedom in the final years of his career. When he arrived at Inter Miami, something remarkable happened. A club that had struggled, that had been near the bottom of its league, suddenly came alive. Messi scored on his debut in a special trophy competition. He scored from a free kick. The ball flew into the corner of the net. The stadium in Miami exploded. The reception he received everywhere in America was extraordinary. Football interest in the United States grew suddenly and enormously. Shirt sales went through the roof. Stadiums sold out. Television numbers were incredible. One man had changed the conversation about football in an entire country. He won the tournament in Miami with a brilliant performance. And once again, people who had said he was finished were left shaking their heads. He was not finished. He would tell you himself that as long as he was healthy and happy, as long as the ball was at his feet and the grass was beneath his boots, he was not finished. The Ballon d'Or count reached 8. 8 times, the football world had voted Lionel Messi the best player on the planet. 8 times, a number that no one will likely match for many decades, if ever. People ask sometimes, what made Messi special? Why him? There were other players with great talent. There were players who were faster, taller, stronger. What was it about this small, quiet man from Rosario? Those who know him well give answers that are surprisingly similar. They talk about his love for the game. Pure, simple love. Not love for the money, not love for the fame. Love for football itself. The feeling of the ball at his feet. The feeling of running. The feeling of scoring. The feeling of winning with teammates. They also talk about his humility. In a world where many great athletes became very proud and very loud, Messi remained quiet. He let his football do the talking. He did not seek attention. He was not interested in drama or controversy. He came to the training ground, he worked, he played, he went home to his family, simple, dedicated. And they talk about his character under pressure. The greatest players in history are defined not in the easy games, but in the hardest moments. When everything is on the line, when the pressure is unbearable, when millions of eyes are watching and the whole world is holding its breath, what do? Do you hide? Do you make excuses? Do you pass the ball to someone else? Messi asked for the ball. In the hardest moments, he wanted the ball. He walked up to take penalties in World Cup finals when any small mistake would be devastating. He asked to be the one responsible. That courage is not something that comes from talent. That courage comes from character. That is something that is built slowly, painfully, over a lifetime of challenges. There are children right now in Argentina, in Spain, in the United States, in Qatar, in Japan, in every country in the world who watch Messi play and feel something light up inside them. They watch him and they think, maybe I can too. Maybe if I work hard enough, maybe if I love this enough, maybe if I refuse to stop, maybe. And that is the greatest thing Lionel Messi has given to the world. Not the records, not the trophies, not the goals. The greatest thing he has given is that feeling, that possibility, that light. He has shown every child who has ever been told they are too small, too poor, too far from home, too different, too late, too young, too old, that those words do not have to define you. He has shown that the only opinion that truly matters is your own opinion of yourself. And the only way to prove something is to go out and do it. Day after day. Training after training. Game after game. Season after season. Back in Rosario, there is still a dirt field not far from where the Messi family used to live. Children play there every day. They kick the ball around with old shoes. They shout each other's names. They celebrate their goals with their arms raised. And sometimes, in their minds, they are not in Rosario. They are in a great stadium. The lights are blazing. The crowd is roaring. The whole world is watching. And they are Messi, running with the ball, going past defenders, heading for goal. Because Messi taught them this. He taught them that the dream can start on a dirt field in a place that nobody has heard of. That a boy with no money and a body that does not work perfectly can still become the greatest of all time. that the distance between a dirt field and a World Cup final is not measured in miles or money. It is measured in love, in work, in the refusal to give up, and somewhere above all of this, somewhere in the quiet place where he always points when he celebrates, an old woman is smiling, a grandmother who first took a small, shy, extraordinary boy by the hand and walked him to a football field and changed the world forever. That boy's name is Lionel Andres Messi, and his story is not over yet. Moral of the story: no dream is too big when you combine love, hard work, and the courage to never give up, no matter how many times life tries to stop you.